Okay, today we're going to take a look at some of the things we want to do when we are creating a course that's set for distance learning. I know that this summer we will be focusing on creating all our courses online because we're not going to be meeting this summer, and possibly we don't even know what's going to happen in the fall. So we want to make sure that our courses are going to be able to be taught with some type of uh, distance learning, online learning capability. I think all courses should be that way anyway. Now, we're at an age now where time now where we have the ability to use so much technology that our courses should be transferable or at least flexible to be taught online, because that's just how things are now. If you're still walking around with a suitcase on wheels with papers that need to be graded and handouts, you are way behind the curve. That just doesn't make any sense. And again, depending on what you're teaching, I know, I taught math, high school math, and I had the same thing. I'm not that familiar even now with the math tools, but we do have. I know Blackboard has math tools. The publishers have math tools that you can use, but you shouldn't be walking around with that suitcase on wheels because we have so many tools that you can use. So it's time for. I mean, I totally believe this. It's time for some teachers to get on the ball and make your classes flexible, because if you don't, you're only hurting yourself, and more importantly, you're hurting the students. um as I could tell you horror stories, it's just unbelievable that this day and age that teachers, I mean, and I'm when I say teachers, I'm talking about college. I'm not talking about high school or grade school, but I'm talking about the universities. You have the tools at your ready, and you should be using them. So let's just take a look at some basic tools that I think that we should be looking at when you're creating a distance learning course and when you're making your course flexible to go to there. Um, we're going to look at the course design, because the course design is the most important thing that you want to focus on. Creating folders. Now, people do this. A lot of instructional designers do this differently. They will separate the folders by modules. Module one, module two, or they'll break it down by weekly folders, week one, week two, or they'll put assignments in one folder and content in another folder. I like to keep everything in one folder because having your students click all over the place, it's just they won't do it. They'll forget to click here and click there. So if you put everything in one folder where they can see it and they don't have to come out of that folder, it's better for them, and it's better for you because you know where everything is. So I do weeks. So I have one folder that says weekly assignments, and I build week one, week two, week three, weekly folders in that big weekly assignments folder. So everything that we're doing in week one is in week one. Everything we're doing in week two is in week two. So all the assignments, videos, reading assignments, discussion questions, it's all in one folder. So they don't have to click around. It makes it easier. So, this is all about, look, when you're teaching online, you have to make this as less complicated as possible. You know, and I'm going to say this throughout the entire day, is like, just because we have technology doesn't mean we have to use all the technology. Technology for the sake of technology is just worthless, because you're going to spend half the time trying to fix something or teach people how to use it. You're getting away from your content. So use technology to enhance your content, not to teach your content. um, so be very careful, and when designing your course, don't have things all over the place. Keep it in one location so everybody knows where it is. It's not that difficult. We're going to look at the folder setup. So when I say folder setup, I mean So once you've decided on how you're going to create your folders, either weeks or by modules or what have you, then you want to keep a consistency within the folder. So I usually have in each weekly folder a learning objective. So this week's learning objective is this. And then if I have a reading assignment or a PDF attachment I want them to do, then I'll do that. And then maybe I may have a video for them to watch, and then a discussion question or an assignment based on the video I had them watch. And then anything else that I want. But I mean, so there's the consistency, learning objective, reading assignment, and then an assignment, whatever you do. Okay. And I guess now is the best time to say this in Blackboard, and especially when I talk to faculty, in Blackboard, there are certain tools. So when you say I'm giving my students an assignment, you are saying I am using the assignment tool in Blackboard and it's going to be graded. That's what the assignment tool does. If I'm giving them a test, it's using the test tool. If you're using a discussion, then you're using the discussion tool. So I think also what faculty need to learn and to understand that, it's really important to get the vernacular down, the language down of the tool you're using, because one, it helps you to better understand how to do certain things and what to use when you want to do certain things. And two, if you have an issue, truly, it really helps the person helping you. Many times I'll get faculty say, I gave an assignment and I can't see it being graded. And I'll say, well, you didn't do an assignment. You attached a document. It's like, yeah, but it's an assignment. I'm like, well, it may be an assignment in your view because you want it graded, but you have to use the assignment tool in Blackboard for students to submit something. So there's the failure to communicate there. So assignments in Blackboard means that you are giving the students the ability to upload something to be graded. Anything that's being graded in Blackboard will create a grading column, and we'll get into that later on. And then one important tool I think Blackboard has that you should be using, definitely, I think you should be using it whether it's an online course or a face-to-face course, is the announcements tool. The announcement tool is just what it is. It sends out announcements. Students' emails are attached to Blackboard. So when you send out an announcement, it goes right to their email. They will get the announcement, and you can actually link things in the announcement, so they will be able to go to the page or the folder or the file wherever you want them to go. But announcements are a great tool to, you can sum up the week's work. You can send a quick note, especially if you're meeting face-to-face, you're saying, of course, the class may be canceled or delayed, or you may want to express upon a special point. You could put that in there, or you may want to send the class an article or a link. This is where you can do it in the announcements tool. And it goes right to them, and they'll be able to see it. So we'll take a look at that. And then we'll take a look at some of the synchronous learning tools. We're not going to go too much into that. But Blackboard Collaborate, Blackboard has its own tool that most of us are all familiar with. We've got Zoom, WebEx, so these are the synchronous tools that we're using. Now, this past semester when this pandemic hit, we got Zoom and Collaborate. Faculty were holding the same classes for 3 hours and 2 hours. I am not a fan of that at all. It's hard to keep them in when you're sitting down face to face for 3 hours. But online for 3 hours, I think is ridiculous, unless there is something that, you need to do and need to get done, then you hold them for that, or you hold them for at least, longer. But, if you've ever been to a webinar, have you ever sat in front of the computer for 3 hours straight? No, So, what I did with my classes this semester was, we met every other week. on Zoom. We had Zoom meetings. I gave them an assignment for 1 week. They went through it, and then we met. My classes were an hour and a half, some were 3 hours, but I didn't meet for the full time. For the most, I might have met for an hour, and we've probably went over an hour because of our discussions. Now if your class time is going over an hour because you're having a lively debate and you're really talking, oh, by all means, I think go. Especially if the class is into it. Yeah, I mean, why stop that? But if you're sitting there talking to your students like you're talking and talking for 3 hours, that's a waste of time. Your students aren't getting anything out of that. So, I mean, so what continue on, what I did was we wrapped up the discussion and the assignments that I gave the prior week, and I set up what was going to be done for the next week. And we had a little discussion. I gave a little 10-minute lecture, a setup of what we wanted to talk about, and then we took it from there. Sometimes we went, I wanted to do at least 45 minutes to an hour, but sometimes it went the full 2 hours. Or an hour and a half, because we were having a really great discussion and the students were into it. Sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. That's just the reality of things. You can't push it. Again, and I think and this is, I never say this is a rule of thumb, but some courses are different, some things are different. So, but you always, again, during this time, going into the summer and even to the fall, the fall will be a little bit easier because you would have time to have learned all this stuff and all the things that you want to do and learn some of the technology and the tools. But you always have to think of the other side. Granted, students are students and you still need to do the work, right? And you're still responsible for your grades and you're still responsible for the work. But you also have to understand that these times are extenuating circumstances. So, when you redesign the courses, design it in such a way that, that the work isn't easy, but it's not difficult to get the work done. And that you have to also understand that there are other faculty who may not know how to do certain things. As crazy it may seem, there are some faculty who just are not with this whole technology and they're going to continue to do things how they do. So students will struggle because faculty are struggling. So that's just the honest truth, So there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration when we're teaching online and switching these courses over, and I think in my personal opinion is it's our jobs as teachers to not make it as easy as possible, but at least not as painful as possible during this time. It's tough for everybody, so why make it even more tough, when you don't have to? And that's what I'm saying. So we'll take a look at some of the tools. Collaborate, Zoom. But if you want to go more in depth, that you need to talk to your college instructional designers so they can set up a time so you can talk more about how to use the certain tools and what's the best tool to use. And then lastly, we're going to get into the grade center and grading, which is just a daunting tool in Blackboard. And I say that only because faculty, and I treat faculty like I treat my students, because one, I'm a faculty member and I know how difficult and how hard it can be sometimes. But sometimes faculty make it even harder on themselves. Before all the computers and all these learning management systems, we had grade books. Some are blue and some are manila color, and you had these, I remember in high school, when I was teaching high school, we had the Delaney cards. Yeah, that's how far we go back. And that's where you'd keep attendance and you'd put your grades in, put all your grades in. And things were simpler. and you had an assignment, you got a test, it's out of 100, and there you go. And then you did your grades, and then you handed them in. Now all of a sudden we got this Blackboard or LMS system, and faculty are like, well, I don't know how to do my grades. Well, what's changed? You've given them a test, you're giving them assignments out of 100, which out of 100, out of 100, out of 100, you know? So the disconnect there is, well, it's only worth 10% of my grade, so I should make it 10%. Yeah, you didn't do that when you were, writing it on your piece of paper, so don't change it now. I think we all do. We all make things a little bit more difficult than it needs to be because we don't know, which is fine, But that's why we're here. So we're gonna take a look at the Grade Center. How I set my Grade Center, my grades up. Everything is out of 100. All my assignments are out of 100. All my tests are out of 100. My discussions are out of 5 points, 5 points or 3 points. And in Blackboard, you can, once you do that, you can weight your columns so that, if your assignments are worth 20%, so, if your assignments are worth 25%, your tests are worth 25%, discussions are worth 25%, papers worth 25%, it all equals 100, so if you have 10 assignments totaling 100 points each, if you get 1,000 points for your assignments, you're going to get a perfect score for your assignments. Okay. So I just make everything 100. And then in the end, Blackboard, you can weight it yourself. You can weight it in the end in Blackboard. So, that doesn't matter. Your students want to see what they got out of 100, or if you're going to make it 10, make it 10, so just don't worry about how much the thing is worth. Individually, it's not worth 10%. That one assignment is not worth 10% of the grade. Okay. Unless it's one assignment that's worth 10%. But if you have 5 assignments, you set it up, make everything 100, and then we can weight each individual assignment or test individually in Blackboard. And like I think I said this before, is that anytime you have something graded, so your assignments, if you're having discussions and you want it graded, it automatically creates a grading column in the Grade Center, so you don't have to manually create. The only time you have to manually create a column is if you're giving them something that you don't want Blackboard. That's in Blackboard. So, for instance, if you gave them an assignment, but you didn't, you had them email it to you, or if you gave them like if you were sitting down face to face and you gave them a test, but it wasn't on Blackboard, but you wanted the Blackboard to count the grade, then you would manually create a grading column. But other than that, anything done in Blackboard that's being graded will create a grading column for you. So those are the 5 things we're going to take a look at: creating the contents, the folder setup, sending out announcements, looking generally and quickly at the synchronous learning tools, and then taking a look at the Grading Center. So this will be a 2-part series. I hope you get a lot out of this, and we'll talk more. This is just not a how-to or webinar. This is the how-to and the why, and then throw in my little 2 cents worth of why you do things, and why you shouldn't do things, and what you need to really learn to do it better. I'm not the end all and be all, but I've seen a lot, done a lot, and we're still helping people out. So if I can lend you a hand and show you some right things to do, then so be it. All right, so sit back, get your pens and paper out, note tablet out, iPad out, and let's talk about creating some content.